conversations that need to be had. Like, for example, biracial couple, like how many conversations do we have about that? I mean, certainly, Jack and I can speak to it, the two of you can speak to it. And it's like we hear these terrible stories, people being disowned for marrying someone of a different color, or people not having houses rented to them, but that was back in the day. So here we are now.
Right.
But the question that we had for you guys, because we have our own stories, but what obstacles, have you had any hurdles that the two of you have had to deal with?
Yeah, we have. I would say it's amazing. I just saw, she showed me the other day that it's only been 53 years?
Something like that.
53 years since, specifically a black man was able to marry a white woman.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they see me and they see her and they just think, oh man, he married a white woman. And for me personally,
what do you think about it, sweetheart? I'm glad they got together. Sorry.
So for me personally, as an African American male, I've had it from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. I get it from my own community because there's this belief or myth that if you marry outside your race, that you are a sellout or betraying.
Yeah.
And and then obviously from the white community, I get it as if you stole one of ours, it's just, that's how it goes. And for my wife, she's a Estonian, and over in Europe and Estonia, there's like zero black people at all. Okay. So for her, it's a little more extreme, I would say, and out front, because she's dealt with it a lot in, Twitter comments, Instagram comments, and it's in a different language. So if you don't know Estonian, you don't know what they're saying, but she knows what they're saying, and I'll let her speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad because, and I try to honestly just call people out because that's just my new motto. I just call them out because, like Robert said in his speech, the change starts within your family, with your friends, within yourself. So you gotta be willing to, if you hear something, or you gotta be willing to say something.
Yes.
So I just feel like I guess my family kind of, since the country that I'm from is super small and my whole family is athletes, we're well known in the country. And now I married an NFL player, so they just take anything I post or anything we do and they make it like headline news. So I don't go in like article comments and read those because this is just ignorant people, but like it hurts to see that the people from my own country that are like, I would expect people to support, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But because I married a black man, they would rather, call my kids frigging monkeys and like, it's heartbreaking to see it. So I try to call people out, and like we've had a couple experiences with Robert in Estonia where my whole family almost had to kill a man.
Oh man. Wow.
Yeah, but
it speaks to what you guys are wanting to do, right? You talked about it. It's about awareness, right? It's important to have these conversations, but it's even more. It's not enough to just know, right? You have to act and you have to do something. So, a big issue, I would say, a big issue in Estonia is that they live in a bubble, right? They don't experience other cultures. Right. So when they see another culture or they see one of their own, quote unquote, prized possessions, be taken by another culture, they feel like, man, why did you do that? If I was to go to Estonia, typically I'm not bothered because I'm a celebrity. Mm-hmm. If Lil Wayne goes there, he's not bothered because he's a celebrity. Justin Gatlin is a track athlete. He went there. He's not bothered. They love those types of African Americans, right? They love those types of black people.
They love the black culture. They don't love black people.
Right, but
have someone move in next door to them or something.
Exactly, but if someone was to some normal, we're all normal people, but if some non-celebrity person was to go move in next door to them, they think they don't speak proper English, they sag their pants, they smoke weed, they're a criminal, because that's all they see on television, right? That's all they see in the news. It's how my people are portrayed. Mm-hmm. So they hold those prejudices when they just see you in the street. So a couple times when I'm just walking by myself and I'm, I maybe have a hoodie on or something and they can't really visibly identify me, I automatically become what they've seen on TV.
Yeah.
I'm no longer the celebrity and they no longer, accept me in those moments. And I feel like in a country like Estonia, it's a lot more visible because they don't have a multicultural background. Whereas in America, it used to be a lot more visible, and now it's turned into becoming systematic to where they just, they do it in a way where you can't really see it. It's no longer whites only, coloreds only, but they turn down your resume. They don't give you financing from the bank. It's not segregated, but this school is 90% white because they can afford to live here and you can't, even though they got a 375 or however many year head start. It doesn't matter. You just can't live here because you can't afford to live here. And I think that's where we have to come in and try to implement change, right? So for me, like I said, as a black man, I get it from both sides, but because I married a white woman, now all of a sudden I didn't experience profiling, racism, and prejudices as I grew up on my way to becoming a professional athlete. Yeah, I did. I grew up everywhere. I still do.
Yeah.
I grew up everywhere. I was a military kid, military brat. So I grew up in Japan. I grew up in Colorado. Not Colorado. I grew up in Washington State. I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been to schools that are that are predominantly white. I've been to schools that are predominantly black. I've been everywhere. I lived in the projects. So I have those experiences, and I've experienced those prejudices. And it's disheartening sometimes when people are like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to listen to that because his wife is white." It's like, I'm out here fighting for all of us. I'm out here fighting for the cause, and the cause really is equality. It's not superiority. It's not inferiority. It's equality for all.
It's
and,
like your people think that your skin color changes when you marry somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, you're all of a sudden not black because you married a white woman.
And you're no longer white because you married someone outside of your race.
Right, and we're just flip-flops. So I think, like we were talking last night, she's like, we can, I'm like, but I see it a little differently because I'm a white male. And it's like, oh, she found a white dude to marry. Like, same thing you were saying, just flip-flop.
Right.
But for you, even as a quarterback, like recently, I mean, decade or so, there weren't many black quarterbacks. Like, I mean, that was obvious. A black athlete could play any position except quarterback.
Right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I dealt with that growing up in really from when I first started playing football. I didn't play Pee Wee League, Little League football. So I started in 7th grade when school sports started. And I came in, I had run track the previous summer, and the coaches heard about it. And they're like, "Oh, man, what position do you want to play?" So I want to play quarterback. They said, "You sure you don't want to play running back or wide receiver?" I said, "No, I want to play quarterback."
Right.
And I fought that my whole life. So as I went into high school and I became the starter as a junior, they're like, "Oh, man, we could make you an all-American safety or all-American wide receiver." And I got 25 plus offers to play quarterback, but I had a couple big school offers to play other positions, and I turned them down. I just said, "No, I'm a quarterback."
Right.
And it's in the NFL, right? Like you said, it was really tough to be a black quarterback, and it still is, right? You have the MVP. The past 2 years has been an African-American quarterback, and there's a young crop of quarterbacks that are African-American that are going to take the league by storm, but they're still held to a different standard. They're still criticized differently than as if their skin was a different color. You never hear anyone talk about the the Aaron Rodgers, right? The Andrew Lucks, for the older generation, right? The Steve Youngs, right? These are guys that do the same things that a lot of these African American quarterbacks are doing. They can throw it, they can run it, they make guys miss, they do all these different things. What was it? Like Jake Plummer, right? Jake Plummer for the Broncos and the Cardinals. These guys were all moving around and doing these things, but they were held to a different standard, right? It was never, can he read a defense? It was never, his work ethic isn't there. all those culturally motivated stereotypes are still used to describe African American quarterbacks. They're still used to describe African American coaches or executives or people who are trying to get to the highest level. And you just wonder why. Like, why is that? And it's something that I ran into in my career. I was drafted in the first round, and immediately, like the day after I got to Washington, I was hit with racism and prejudice and stereotypes in the building. So it's unfortunate, and it's like, how do you eliminate that? You should judge someone by the content of their character. No one's ever said I didn't work hard, and all of a sudden they're saying I don't work hard. No one's ever questioned my mental capacity, but now all of a sudden they're questioning my mental capacity. Why is that? It can't be because of what I'm showing you. It's got to be something else that's hidden. And how do we eliminate that?
It's 100 years of villainizing a whole race. Like,
correct.
I mean,
it's ingrained. It's
right.
Yeah, like how do we undo what's been done? And it's a hard question.
What I was getting to too is it's awareness, like you said. Like we believe in it's awareness first and then action. But what I worry about is I think 70% of the population in America is African American, which is crazy. 17%. Like that's a small portion.
Right.
So I'm like, what about all these little towns throughout the whole country that this doesn't affect them?
Correct.
You know what I mean? So are they out doing rallies? Are they out doing, you know what I mean? Like, like we live in a small little town, and we actually had a rally here, which was surprising.
Right.
But I can only imagine, you know, Trump land is not.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, right? Like this year, everyone was saying 2020. Oh my gosh, like what else could happen? Like what could be worse than this year? And it's actually turned out to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to America. And I say America because that's where we are, and we can't really see what's going on in London or in Europe or China or Japan or anywhere else. So because everyone is locked inside, their eyes are on the screens more often, you know, there's more unemployment than ever. When you see something like you saw with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and now Rayshard Brooks out of Atlanta, you're like, what is going on? Right? Like, it was very visible with George Floyd to see that this was not right. You know, people will come up with all types of excuses or reasons why certain things happen to certain people, but it doesn't matter if you're a criminal, a felon, what you did in the past. You should not be unjustly killed by the police. You shouldn't. That's just what it is. And I think because of what happened to George Floyd and how it happened, you don't kneel on a guy's neck for 8 minutes and 49 seconds. Everyone saw that. So that's why I think your town is rallying and other towns are rallying, because they're like, look, well, first of all, I don't have anything else to do. And I just saw this and it was so egregious. I mean, I have to stand up and say something. And I think that's where the world is right now. And I'm like, yo, this is awesome. This is an opportunity to really make some impactful change.
Yes.
And I just look at, like you said, the small towns in America that truly do live in a bubble, right? And they don't have these experiences with African Americans. I look at them like I look at Estonia.
Right.
And it is about educating and tearing down the walls of those hundreds and hundreds of years of villainization and prejudice and racism to figure out, who are we?
Right.
As a country, you cannot say, we're not racist. We're not, we slavery? What's slavery? Like, okay, slavery happened, guys. Like, you can't get over that.
We were built on racism.
You can't look the other way and say, oh, that didn't happen. That was my ancestors. All right. Well, you know, those are my ancestors, you know, and all those years of no education and no, what they call it, there's a difference between being rich and wealthy, right? There's a lot of rich black people in America right now. There's not a lot of wealthy black people. And that wealth goes back generation after generation after generation after generation, passing it down. We missed out on that. All right. So how do we catch up? I mean, I've heard some people talk about reparations. I don't know enough about that to really dive into that. But I know that there's things that we can do to help build up the communities that have been downtrodden for so long.
Right.
I think I saw one graphic today that it said, Juneteenth. Like all of a sudden now Juneteenth is like everyone's celebrating.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, they're bringing awareness to it. Should I say they've always celebrated, but they're bringing more awareness to it now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shouldn't this have been the whole time?
Right?
It should have been this way the whole time. And I saw a graphic that said free-ish since 1865.
Right? Yeah. I saw that.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. If for like a track analogy, because she's a track and field athlete.
Yes.
If I give her a 300-meter head start in a 400-meter dash, I'm not going to win, right? It doesn't matter how fast I could be Usain Bolt. I'm not going to win that race.
Right.
She's going to run 100 meters before I can run 400 meters, and that's kind of what America did. They held African Americans back for 300 meters of a 400-meter race and said, "Well, you're free. It's equal. It's wow. It's an equal race now. Have at it." And we've been trying to catch up ever since. They didn't say, "Man, we held you back for 300 meters. We're going to do this to help you gain back 150 of those meters, and we're going to do this to help you gain back another 50 meters until you catch up." And I get it. Like, the majority is white, and it's an overwhelming majority. It's not even close. We got about 17% that's black, and they're saying tough luck. Well, I think those days are over. I think those days of saying tough luck are over, and we're seeing that people are really trying to impact change.